Let's unpack this a little more though. When it comes to the issue of diversity, I identified those visible and non-visible attributes of difference. What I will tell you is that for most of us, we still live in the area of visible differences. And that's what we tend to think this work is really all about. I'm going to ask you in just a second to take a look at this. This is intended to be a graphical representation of an iceberg. This is the water line. These are the things above that line that you normally can see. These are those things below that water line that you normally can't see about people. In a second, I'm going to ask you to define what are the two attributes of difference that mean the most to you. Not how other people see you, but how you see yourself. Here's where I'm going to go. I will share with you that the aspects of difference can change in their importance in the snap of a finger. Just because something is in your top 1 or 2 today doesn't mean that's the case tomorrow. Something may happen tomorrow that shifts the priorities significantly. Quick example, military experience. My military experience for the majority of my life has not even been in my top 5, nevertheless my top 2. I served at the end of the Vietnam era and at the beginning of the Desert Storm era. During the Vietnam era, I will never forget standing in an airport in San Antonio in my uniform, hand in my pocket, a young man walks up to me, clears his throat, and spits on my uniform. And I don't mean the one I'm carrying over my shoulder, I mean the one I'm wearing. It was fortunate my hand was in my pocket, because if it hadn't been in my pocket, I would have probably introduced his teeth to his tonsils, and I would have been everything he was yelling at me with My Lai massacre and baby killer, and it's like, dude, I never set foot in My Lai village, I had nothing to do with that. But in his mind, my uniform represented that to him. Here's where I'm going. For me, I never heard anybody say to me, thank you for your service, as we say today. That comment never came up. However, on September 11, 2001, when the World Trade Centers were attacked, my pride in my military background went up significantly. And it was the first time my baby boy ever saw a picture of me in uniform. And I emphasize picture, because if you grease that uniform up and push real hard, I couldn't get back in it even if I wanted to. But I was proud of it at that point. I hadn't been prior to that. So I'm going to ask you to identify those two aspects of difference that mean the most to you today, keeping in mind that it can change, and I'm not asking how you think other people see you, but what are the two most important to you? Everybody got your 2 in mind? Here's my first question. In this case, I want to know, as it relates to the second most important aspect of difference for you, does that exist below this waterline of visibility? And if it does, raise your hand. If it's below the waterline of visibility, raise your hand and take a look around the room. Okay? My next question, the most important, number 1 on your list. If that's also below the waterline of visibility, again, raise your hand if you would, please, and take a look around the room. I'm estimating there's at least 30 people in the room. 60 key identities self-identified. Of those 60, at least 56 to 57 of them live below the waterline of visibility. What does that say to you?
Basically, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Absolutely. Expand on that. What does it say to you in addition to the fact that you can't judge a book by its cover?
We're all unique, and we have our likes and our dislikes, and what you see doesn't mean that's what we are.
Absolutely. Carry that over into the workplace. As a result of what we often are told by HR, be careful what you say up here. If you say the wrong thing, you're going to come see me. And you do not want to come see me because you said something or made inappropriate comments here. Now I come back to those below the waterline aspects of difference. What can happen now? Eliminate HR from the conversation. What can happen in the workplace? Absolutely. You can say something without having any intent, not knowing where someone lives, if you would, and your comment can be just as guttural in terms of the impact as those things above the waterline. How do I know? Again, this isn't what I do, it's who I am. I had an occasion working in an organization where as I'm standing at a T-bone intersection of cubicles waiting on a coworker to come join me for lunch, I stand there's an open door behind me and 2 women are having a conversation. One of them says, did you listen to National Public Radio this morning coming to work? She says, no, I was listening to music. What did I miss? She said, well, they had this report on about most of the societal problems being linked to men being absent from the lives of their children. I was married the first time when I was 18. to a lady I'd known all of 4 weeks. I'm now, at this point, divorced, raising my baby boy on my own. And in this conversation, the two ladies talking, one says, not only are men at the core of the problems with our families, teen pregnancy, violence, gangs, all of that would get mitigated if fathers were more active in the lives of their children. And this study says that black men in particular do not take care of their families. I don't understand what these guys can be thinking. What can be more important than that? And I'm standing right outside the office. You know how you have like the good voice and the bad voice that are whispering? One voice is saying, walk away. Do not open your mouth. They have an office with a door, you have a cubicle. You want your paycheck? Walk away. The other voice is saying, don't walk away. What are you now? You're gonna just put your tail between your legs? Be a man, say something. I'm going, okay, I came here looking for a job, I can leave here looking for a job. I don't do walk away real well, so I walked over to the door frame and I went, excuse me, ladies. I realize that you might have intended for this to be a private conversation, but your door was open and your voice is carried out into the hall and it ceased to be a private conversation at that point. I just want to share with you, don't take one data point and apply it to a whole group of people, no matter what that data point is. Last time I checked, I was African American. I'm also a father. And nothing is more important to me than my son. So don't assume just because of what you heard in that report that that's all black men. The apologies began. I cut them off. I said, ladies, let me be clear. I didn't come to say this for an apology. To be honest with you, I didn't say this for you. I said it for me. Because if I return from lunch and have to walk into a room to work with one of the two of you, when I walk in the room and see you, my first reaction is what I heard you say. Because my guttural reaction to that comment was no different than had I heard the N-word come out of your office. I don't identify with that word. I'm offended by it, but I clearly identify it with my parental status and my pride in connecting with my son. And what you said to me was no different than had you punched me in my gut using the N-word. So for many of us, how easy is it for us to say something around those non-visible aspects of difference without having a clue what we just said? Punch somebody in the gut. Here's my question. Is there anyone here willing to identify what's one of those two aspects of difference that means the most to you? And what comment would bother you, whether you've ever heard it or not, about that aspect of difference? Here's what I'm asking. Someone here today may have said that. Someone here today may have heard someone else say that and chose not to speak up. So what you share today may be a teaching moment for someone to ensure that tomorrow it doesn't occur again. Anyone willing to share what that aspect of difference amongst your top two might have been, and what comment, whether you've ever heard it or not, would really be bothersome for you for the purpose of teaching the rest of us here, myself included?
For me, it would be work background. Sometimes I hear a lot of times in conversations amongst management teams when we use the word just.